Today, I sat down with Thomas Stewart, who has 17,000 subscribers on YouTube and has released games to every major platform. In today's conversation, you can expect a deep dive into which developers should actually consider releasing on more consoles or porting, so to speak. Also, what it's been like for him working with Aramis and Thornity on his upcoming game, Just Keep Fishing, and whether or not you should consider YouTube as a game dev. I'm excited to share, and let's get into it. Thomas, if I want to better understand the developer sitting before me, what do I need to understand about your childhood years?
Okay, this is kind of an interesting question. Because I hear like part of what I do now for contract work that I do for a publisher is managing some of their hires that they do. So I do like job postings and I get to screen a lot of applicants. And a lot of people will lead with, "Oh, I've always loved playing games since I was a kid." And I thought that was like I was in the camp of everybody else where I thought that was a unique identifier until I realized so many people have that shared experience to where now you're just kind of blending in with. So I don't want to say like, well, I've loved playing video games since I was a kid. But one thing that came to mind when you asked that is I have two siblings, two older sisters, and one of them, the one that's closer in age to me, she's very creative. Like she was an art major in college. She did graphic design. She developed like a whole clothing line for a coffee company near us. And so she's like super creative, like what you would think as an artist. And I grew up kind of in this realm where I thought, oh, I'm not artistic. I am like a logical thinker. I'm somebody who's scientific and linear in their thinking. And I kind of lived into that identity for a really long time. And then I realized I actually am really creative, and it just manifested itself in different ways. And that's kind of why I loved getting into game development, because it is kind of the perfect mesh between the sort of like engineering, linear, logical thinking, and then like a creative expression. So it's a really interesting artistic medium. But yeah, if you go back to my childhood, I would have told you there's no way, like I don't have any creativity. But the clues were all there, leading up to where I am now. So.
Yeah, I super resonate with that story. I almost, to a T. Not, I don't have two sisters, but this creativity piece, convinced myself somewhere along the way, maybe like my junior high years, which is like sixth, seventh, eighth grade for any international folks. And somewhere along the way, convinced myself that, I was like the right brain. I was very into sports. And so I really convinced myself of that. And a really big part of my just sort of self-discovery as an adult has been this creative side. And like you said, game dev is maybe that's why I landed on game dev too, is it's like this easier transition because it has those logical pieces with programming and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think in your childhood were you convinced from a very young age, or was it like some sort of social maybe norms pushed you to not think you're creative? Where do you think that came from?
I think it was primarily just the direct contrast with seeing the things that my sister was doing. And I'm like, oh, I don't have any of the same proclivities. I cannot pick up a guitar and, strum and like, make beautiful music, or piano, or a lot of these like colors and seeing symmetry and art, like all of these things that came, I think, very naturally to her did not come naturally to me. But now in hindsight, looking back, there were some things like I was going through some old tokens from my childhood the other day, and I used to make comic books, so I would like staple some papers together and I made my own. They were Sonic the Hedgehog comic books, and I just remember like developing characters and having like the story side of my creativity come out in that way. So I don't think there was any like negative like reinforcement of like, oh, you're not creative, you just need to stick to this or that. I don't think I had any of that. I just think that I typically think about it as like very binary. Like you either are a creative or you are a engineer, doctor, lawyer type person. And I think there's a little more gray area to that.
Yeah, we must have just had the same childhood because I also remember making little comics
Yeah.
and little things like that. You mentioned obviously also, I think a lot of game devs, like you said, have this key childhood part that is video games. What were those games for you? Were you playing games with your family? Were you always playing games? Did it come later? Where did games come into your life?
Yeah, super early on. I've put this in some of my YouTube videos, but I dug up some pictures of me and my sisters playing the NES, first Nintendo console that we owned, and playing Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3 were kind of the bread and butter, and that's where I learned all the ropes of what makes a good game. And my sisters would always want to be playing. You know, they're like 5-ish years older than me, and they would take the controller, play the one-player game, and they would hand me the second controller, leave it unplugged, and I was so young that I would just hit buttons and think I was playing. So they called that Pretendo. So that was my first experience as a playing video games, was playing Pretendo.
Yeah, incredible. As the oldest child, I whipped out the Pretendo when mom made me play with my brothers 100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's incredible. At what point do you think making games became something you realized that maybe you could do or that you dreamed about? When did that
Yeah.
come into play?
It was so far off of my radar because uh, it's interesting. I was talking to my wife about this recently, and you know, you grow up and you kind of realize like there are career paths that are just out of your league. You know, like we have like this kind of spirit in the West where it's like, you know, you can do whatever you set your mind to, you know, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and shoot for the stars and all that, you know. So it's like, and there are like a lot of opportunities out there, but you know, things like being like a famous movie actor or like a famous musician or you know, like a celebrity, those are like a pro basketball player, you know, like I think like my genetics basically have already like not done me a lot of favors, you know. So there are paths that are closed off to me, and I put game developer in that category as well because I thought, oh, that's like only like the top tier of like programmers and artists, and there's not a lot of game studios, you know, because I could only name a few, and I'm like, they're highly coveted. So I always thought, oh, that's gonna be like it's not something that anybody that I know would ever be doing. And so it's really interesting now because I know tons of people that make video games, and it's kind of been democratized because of so many different things, the tools and just the appetite of, you know, the players that want more games and stuff. So um, I think that light turned on for me probably when I was in college, maybe post college. I studied computer science in college, and then I graduated and worked for a little bit, and then I kind of had a quarter life crisis where I was like, well, I do not want to be doing what I'm doing now for the next like 30 years. So then I kind of had a hard look in the mirror, and then I was like, okay, what do I want to do the rest of my life? And then I started looking around, and I'm like, oh, it actually I think was YouTube devlogs that kind of um, tuned me into the fact that people can make games from their bedrooms, um, and you can go and apply to a bunch of different jobs. So, um, yeah, that was kind of my thought process.
Hey, Blake here. I just wanted to pause for a moment in this episode and ask for your help. So I'm trying to grow this podcast and get the best guests possible for you. And the easiest way you can help me do that is by hitting the subscribe button. I know that in 2026, subscribing doesn't do a lot for us as the viewer, but it does still build up this sort of authority for some reason. People seem to like that number. So it's perfectly free. And if you want to keep seeing the podcast grow, hitting that subscribe button goes a really long way. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leaving a review does just as much work. All right, thanks, and let's get you straight back to this awesome episode with Thomas. Yeah, and then fast forwarding to today, you know, you've experienced this democratization of game development and have kind of, you know, become a successful dev in your own right in a lot of ways. What would you say is your game dev dream as you
Mhm.
sit here today, this version of Thomas?
Yeah. So when I had like my quarter life crisis, that's what I like to call it. This was in like 2018, 2019. Um, I had moved to a new area. It was me and my wife, and she was going to school like all day, and I was working remotely by myself, kind of pulled away from my coworkers that I really liked, and was just stuck in this apartment room, just clocking in the hours, didn't have any friends or family near us. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't even enjoy this work. It was like a lot of back end infrastructure, cloud ops, sort of um, uh, yeah, that whole world, database migrations and all, and I was like, I don't want to live here the rest of my life. So what do I want to do? I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Yeah, I was asking you what this version of yourself today, what is your game dev dream?
Oh yeah. So when I sat down and I kind of thought to myself, okay, what do I want to what where do I want to take my career for the foreseeable future into the next few decades? And I thought about it a lot, and I was like, well, if I won the lottery and I didn't have to worry about paying bills, I would obviously still be doing something with my time. And what would that be? And I was like, I'd probably be learning how to make video games, because that already ties into some of the skill sets that I have, and it draws me in with the to learn some skill sets that I don't yet have. I think it would be an endless fountain of creative fulfillment, and so that really drew me in, and so I kind of drew up a 5-year plan to make that a reality, and I've actually stuck to it pretty well. My first phase was create some prototypes to build up a portfolio so that I could learn game dev technology and show projects to potential employers. I spent like a year doing that, and then the next was to get hired at any place that would pay me to open up Unity, and that was like my only criteria. And I was able to accomplish that, and I worked there for over 3 years, and I was a gameplay programmer, and I learned a ton about game development and working in Unity, a lot of technical skills. And then the next phase after that was, okay, be able to make games by myself and live off of the game sales. And so that's kind of the phase that I'm in now. And really the goal for me is like I do have a dream game, like a one good idea of a big game that I would love to make. I don't think I'm close to embarking on that journey yet, but for me, like the big goal is to just be able to make games that make enough money that allow me to make the next game. So that's
Yeah, so
it's like an
would you say that
underwhelming
you are
dream a little
living
bit.
the dream? No, that's not
Yeah.
underwhelming at all. I think that's actually the I mean, I named this the Dev Dream podcast because I want it to be about not just like programming, but also just like inspiration and the people behind the
Yep.
games. And yeah, more than any other answer, people just want to be able to spend their days making games and have
Yeah.
enough money to eat,
Yeah.
basically. So
Yep.
yeah, that's like a very real dream. Would
Yep.
you say that you're living the dream, or is there enough maybe stress or pressure from this
Yeah.
entrepreneurial piece that maybe it doesn't quite feel like a dream just yet?
Yeah. It's both, and there's waves. I thought I was gonna feel so much freedom when I left my day job and like felt like the first breath of fresh air of being self-employed. And instead I put in my notice and left my job, and then I just felt like so much pressure. And I was like,
Yeah.
there's like this is not going to be fun right now. Like fun is not the goal. We are like cracking down because we have to make this work, which is good. I think that and it comes in waves, obviously, but it's a very organic journey. But I'm enjoying it tremendously. I'm not where I want to be permanently. Like game sales aren't giving me enough money to live off of just by itself. So I pick up freelance work here and there. So I'm doing some part-time contract work for a publisher, doing some production related stuff, and picking up some contract work developing projects for different clients, like different games. So I'm doing stuff here and there in between making games and YouTube and stuff, and just it's all kind of an amalgamation of different small streams of income right now. But my goal would be to um, be able to just do game development. If honestly, I would, well, we can talk about YouTube later, but I would love to be able to just not worry about, oh, okay, like game sales are not performing very well. Like I'm gonna do some more contract work here, and all of that stuff. So I'm definitely progressing, but not where I want to be long term.
Okay, yeah, so many little tidbits of like places that I definitely want to get to in this conversation.
Hmm.
First, I think so. I allow my Discord users to ask questions to future guests, and
Oh,
I think
nice.
it fits in here as you talk about contract work and how you've worked for a game studio. So Kai asked, since he's been in multiple positions in the industry, I'd
Hmm.
like to know what he thinks is the most viable option for someone wanting to break into the industry.
Oh, interesting. Um, if you're wanting to try to get a foot in the door, uh, the most successful role that I've seen people do that in is QA. So if you are able to be very rigorous with documenting a process to test and report bugs and make sure that quality is assured, um, I think that there's always a big need for that for every technical product, especially games. And it's a fun role too because you basically get to play games and report bugs. So I think that's probably, I mean, it depends what your skill set is, but I think that's kind of there's a big need there a lot of the time. And you don't necessarily need a lot of you don't have to be a programmer to get into that too. So, but as I'm saying that, I am realizing that I remember looking at the credits for, I think it was Starfield. It was a big Bethesda game, and they had um, at least one. There was probably multiple, but I just remember it stuck with me that there was a QA role in their entire job. Their whole title of their job was QA for menus in Starfield. And I
Wow.
just thought, oh, that would be the worst job in the whole world. Like
Miserable.
you just have to click through menus and go through your inventory and oh man,
Oh,
yeah. So and that would be really sad too. Like you have like this really big ambitious space odyssey game and you are just like stuck like in the menus and you
ooh,
yeah. I
yeah.
I thought that was so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So if you were going to redo your journey, like let's say you
Mm,
rewound 10 years ago,
mm-hmm.
would you do this same path again of trying to build a portfolio and join maybe a studio, or would you maybe try this route we see on YouTube maybe more often where
Yeah.
people just sort of do stuff in their spare time, maybe they try to add some content creation. Which route would you go?
Oh, I would definitely try going into the industry again. I think that did me so many favors. Yeah. My my assumption was that if I could get paid to learn, then I would be set. And I think that was totally right. I was able to. It was basically like getting a degree in game development while getting paid for it. Because I had a lot of the programming skills, and so yeah, it's obviously not applicable to everybody. And what landed me in my specific role was my game portfolio, but also my experience in a lot of cloud infrastructure stuff because they wanted some backend services for some of the games that they were putting out. So my role was part gameplay programming, part like setting up continuous integration pipelines and game servers and stuff like that. So um, yeah, it's who is it? The productivity influencer on YouTube, Ali Abdal. I think he uses this phrase like it's like your secret weapon. He has a term for it. I don't remember what everybody has like this thing that gives them an upper hand, and you have to figure out what yours is so that you can use it as a lever for your career. Um, and so yeah, for me that was like my experience in the technologies that I was working with. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on a another Ali Abdal kind of binge session lately. I think he calls it
Hmm.
the unfair advantage.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
think is what he calls it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. It's I just think that your path is such a like reasonable and smart one, but one that we don't really hear about.
Yeah.
Like I think, and maybe people feel like it dilutes the dream or something like that to
Yeah.
work in an industry. Like so much of our maybe at least the YouTube community is like my dream game and my passion project.
Yeah.
And so I just think more people should consider this route of joining a small team or even be the menu guy, or
Yeah,
like
right.
be the person that checks on whatever. Like
Yep.
start there. And so I think that's a really cool part of your journey.
Hmm.
Something else that I wanted to ask you about, kind of moving more into sort of your building philosophy, the thing that comes to mind for me when I think of Thomas Stewart, and maybe this is from when I like more regularly watched you a few years ago,
Hmm.
is that you're like the console guy. So I
Oh yeah.
remember that you had this philosophy of, I'm not going to just post to Steam. My
Hmm.
strategy is going to be, what if I just post my games to as many platforms as possible? And I
Yep.
believe you've now published on every major console. And so,
Yep.
yeah, just wanted to check in on that thought process. Do you still think it's viable?
Yep.
Are you canceling that for, let's say, fishing game? What are your
Hmm.
thoughts on this console idea?
It is the great experiment that I undertook. I had before I quit my 9 to 5 job, I scheduled calls with people who were full-time game developers, solo game developers, like people that I found mostly on YouTube, that I had reached out and I'm like, hey, thinking about making this big career change. I would love to pick your brain. Almost everybody said yes. People in the games industry I've found, especially like YouTube game dev creators, are very open to genuine inquiry, which is awesome. Um, and I had I had this idea as I was sitting down with people, like there is a barrier of entry to putting games on consoles. It's a lot more technical overhead. It's not as easy as just uploading an executable to Steam. Um, and you have to go through like there's a lot of red tape and different processes. You have to be incorporated as a company, all of this kind of stuff. Technical requirements like getting um, a static IP address, and it's like, how do you even do that? So all of these things that are limiting factors, and I thought, well, one of my superpowers is that I can try really hard, and so I think if I can just try hard into getting onto these platforms, then I can do it. And my my theory was that the what's it called, the competition on these platforms is going to be way less than Steam because it's harder to get on them. So I thought then probably the floor for how much revenue you're going to sell per game theoretically would be raised. Um, and that was kind of all my thought process. And so I did it. I got dev kits for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox. Nintendo took me over a year to get onto. I had to find a rep from Nintendo and schedule a call with them and kind of plead my case, because the way that they have set up their infrastructure is so bad. Basically, like once you're in, and you can just flood the market with whatever shovelware you want. Um, and there's a lot there. We can dive into any of that. All in all, the process has been very positive, and it has it has made me 5 figures in game sales. Um, and it's been a very medium-ish experience revenue wise, I think. Um, much better than Steam, but also the games that I've released are not good for Steam also, which is that's a whole conversation in itself. Um, but another thing that it lent me was experience, right? Like the whole thing that I'm trying to do with my career is add things to my tool belt. And so I was like, okay, I've become proficient in Unity working at this job for 3+ years. I know how to program games. I don't feel limited in what I can make technically. And then I was like, okay, let's add console porting to my tool belt because I'm kind of getting paid to learn because I'm going to launch my own games and then I'm going to have all of this experience, and it paid dividends. It opened up different contract work opportunities that I could do. It makes me a lot more employable if I ever had to go back and get a job. So that was kind of my thought process. Um, Moving forward, I I understand why other developers do it the way that they do, which is they launch on Steam, and if it's a really good return on Steam, then they justify the effort to put it on consoles. Um, because it is a lot of effort, it is a lot of time, and from just a revenue standpoint, if I w- I think I would have done better if I had neglected consoles excuse me, neglected consoles and just made more games to put on Steam and go through the reps of publishing different ideas and kind of find a good game design that resonates with people. But it's hard to prove that. That's just kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, there's so much interesting things that we could go into here. Let's just For Bridges and Docks, which I think, like you said, is a console-friendly game.
Mm-hmm.
For sure in the art style, but in your sense, what else makes a game friendlier to consoles instead of Steam?
Like definitely there's a bunch. I think I'm trying to I've had conversations with other people that have put games on platforms, and I don't want to reveal sensitive information. So I'm trying to think before I speak. I'll talk about my own game. My first game that I launched, Tanks But No Tanks, is a local multiplayer game. It's not really a single player game. You can play single player, you can fight against bots, but it's like an arena top down shoot each other game, and it's not that I never expected that to do well on Steam. That was like me trying to learn how to launch a game, keep the scope small. But that has actually done pretty well. Some platforms more than others, but so I think it makes sense that a couch co-op game is definitely not going to resonate for Steam's audience. Bridges and Docks is another interesting one. It's just basically a sandbox island creation tool. It's not even really gamified. And that one's really chill. I've got a lot of good feedback from people who like to play it on the Switch because they can kind of take it on the go, and they just get to, make a little vignette of an island environment, just like a little snackable. I think that game would probably do better on mobile too, but I just do not want to publish any more on mobile because that's where I started when I was doing hobby projects, and I just hate the whole process, everything about it, and I don't understand the business model, and so yeah, it's just it's the whole thing.
Yeah, mobile's rough, especially when you start thinking about ads and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. Let's just say For Bridges and Docks, and this might be a little too close to like NDA stuff you don't want to talk about, so feel free to just say pass. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to get a sense of, like, for people listening, how much more successful on consoles than Steam was it? Like, was it
Yeah.
2x on all the consoles, or like, kind of how much better did it do on consoles instead of Steam,
I would have
if
to
you're able to
look.
say?
Yeah, I would have to look. It's definitely at least 2x better. Yeah.
And is that like Steam's a 1 and then each console is a 2, or you're counting all the consoles
No,
as twice of
for
Steam?
for both for all the games that I've put on different consoles, so for just to go over them, I did PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox, which includes all Xboxes. It's the same pipeline. Nintendo Switch and Atari VCS, and all of those have performed drastically different with the games that I've launched. So some have done very well on Xbox and poorly on Nintendo Switch, and then vice versa for the next title that I launched. So it's an interesting sort of there's definitely a player demographic or advertising or some sort of store page optimization opportunities that they're yeah, it's definitely not it's not like the games are very similar across all platforms at all. It's very, very different.
Okay, super interesting. All right, and then just to wrap it up on consoles, what do you have any advice for how someone decides if it's worth it?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a reason why most people do not. I mean, just, you can pay attention and see what, like, the people who know what they're doing are doing with their launch schedule. And a lot of people are launching on Steam first, and then they'll port to certain platforms if it does well. Sometimes though they will combine it and do like a day one launch with Steam and a particular console, and I think that you're better off paying attention to um people who know what they're doing. Because it's interesting too, the different platforms I've noticed. Some platforms have a really good launch, like launch week, and like a noticeable sales spike, and then it flattens out. And other platforms have a very negligible launch spike, but then it just never goes down. So it has a really long tail of just consistent sales. Um, so it's a whole thing. But I think if you're staking your career on it, the Steam user base is just so large, and they are trying. Jonas Tyroller talks about this. Steam is trying to surface good games, and so I think that something that I have adopted with my development philosophy now is I want to prove ideas and develop them as I go. So it's like, prototype a game, show it to some people, see if it resonates. If it doesn't, then like change it or move on to a different idea. And then if it resonates, put it on itch, and then see how that, like slowly expanding the sphere of people who are able to see it. So it's like prototype with private playtesters, and then itch, and then Steam demo, and then Steam launch, and then console porting, probably.
Yeah, well, thanks for that advice. I definitely think that console porting is a little bit of an unexplored frontier, at least for the indie dev community. Like, I do imagine that, and maybe even like, I have a suspicion that maybe like big publishers already have a sense of this, but like maybe eventually we find out this genre, you do Steam and PlayStation.
Yeah.
This genre, I imagine that already exists, but as a community, we haven't cracked the code, so it's a bit of a risk.
Totally.
All right, well, let's keep moving on. I would love to chat about Just Keep Fishing. I was pretty excited whenever you announced this one because, I'm a fan of yours, and I also really enjoy both Aramis and Thornity. And so to hear that the three of you working together, that was like, little Avengers of game dev in the YouTube space for me. So, just to start, what's it been like transitioning to working on a small team? I mean, I know you worked at a game studio, but does this feel the same? Is it different? Kind of just what's your experience been?
Way better, for a number of reasons. It's funny you saying like Avengers. It reminds me. I was talking to somebody, and they were saying that they get me and Aramis mixed up. Like they just see us as the same person, and they're like, yeah, I see your videos, and I'm like, oh, like I forgot the descriptors that they use. They're like, it's this type of person. I know I'm gonna get this type of content, and I'm like, that's hilarious, and I see that as high praise. But I think that also just goes to show that we have compatible ideologies when it comes to developing games, and so it was definitely a natural fit. I was just on Andy's podcast, Scope Creepers, and we talked a lot about kind of what it was like for us to test the waters to see if we wanted to work together, because we had a friendship that's been going on online for a few years, and we've been following each other's stuff and supporting each other. And we actually kind of flip-flopped. So Aramis quit his job and started making games for a year. He had like a year of runway saved up, and then right as he went back at the end of that year, he went back into the workforce. That was right when I quit my job. So then I was self-employed, and then eventually he came back. So it's funny. What has it been like to work with Aramis and Thornity? It's been really, really good. I said this in a previous podcast, but it's great to be able to just bounce ideas off of people that you feel like you trust their competence. And we get into a call and we just say whatever is obvious to us. So, and it's different things are obvious to each of us. And I think that a lot of our skill sets are really are put to good use in this scenario. Like Thornity is like, he's like a madman when it comes to min-maxing and business and marketing and all of that sort of like what grips a player in a game. And then Andy has been so pivotal in the design of the game. And then I've been doing all of the implementation, besides the, they've been working on the skill tree upgrades and kind of the balance for that sort of flow. But, I've found that I am at my best as a partial designer, but like full implementer. And I think that's like how I can develop games the fastest. So it's been super enjoyable. And when you're co-designing a game, there's not a lot of like I would get stuck designing my own games because I would second guess myself constantly. And so now I have a backboard of people that I can converse with, and then also playtesters, which, give a lot of good feedback too.
Yeah, even in just listening to that Scope Creepers episode, it really sounds like you guys have fostered just a really good culture of just truth telling
Yeah.
and believing the best of one another. And just,
Yeah.
I think one of you maybe even said just a line of like, maybe I made this up, but like we're all trusting that we're trying to make the best game or something
Yeah.
to that effect.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just sounded really refreshing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's been great. It feels like working with my friends. And it's like we did finally sign official papers to like figure out like what the whole business agreement would be and revenue split and all of that stuff. But it was like months into development. Like I just signed them recently, but we just had this kind of understanding and trust that we just wanted to, hit the ground moving and get things going for June Next Fest. So
Yeah. Yeah. Glad you got the legal piece figured out, but it's also nice to work with people you trust and can
yeah.
just get started. I think this is a good chance to have another Discord question. Connor, shout out Connor. He's like one of the MVPs of the Discord. Like he's just putting in work in there.
Nice. He sounds great.
He says, yeah, he's the best. He says it would be cool to hear his thoughts around his early journey and having other devs to chat with. So maybe how
Yep.
impactful was connecting with Aramis and other devs during the early phases of his career?
Um, I this we can spend a lot of time here if we wanted to. So one of the things that led me into game development was because of loneliness that I had because I realized that the job that I had out of college was fine. And I really liked my coworkers. And then when I had to move away and I started working remotely, it removed my coworkers and I realized that I actually didn't like the work. And so that was like an interesting thing. So I started working on uh, projects that I found very interesting, but then I still found that I needed that social component of not just friendship, but like peers to where I could learn from people and we could sharpen each other. And I really, really liked that. Coming from the tech world into the games industry specifically was awesome because I wasn't just in meetings with other programmers anymore. It was artists and designers and musicians and all of these people like business like marketing people and all of us were contributing towards this one goal that is supposed to be fun. And when fun is the goal and you're like shoulder to shoulder with people who are savvy in all of these different disciplines, it's really fun. um yeah, I don't know if that answers that question.
Yeah, it does. And then you said it seems like, or there's like a lot you could talk about here. It seemed like maybe there was something, some thought or some emotion boiling there for you. What was that?
Yeah, so really like I have my own podcast too, and that just bloomed naturally because of conversations like this that I was having with people that were in the same shoes as me, and I just decided to start recording them, and it was great because like I was trying to figure out because I don't know. Actually, I went to my first game dev meetup a couple weeks ago. That was local to me. I had to drive like 45 minutes to get to it, but there's not a lot of game devs where I live. And it was actually not until last year, maybe, that I had met a game developer in person. Before that, everybody that I had ever met in the game development world was only online. Um, and so I was trying to connect with people, and a lot of these conversations just grow organically, with Aramis and a bunch of other people. And some people that I've had on my podcast are people that I've had, you know, calls with in the past, but they just weren't recorded. And so, building up a network of really what I would see as friends in the industry, and we're all trying to figure stuff out together and cheer each other on, and like share projects and ideas. It is one of my favorite things about where I'm at and what I'm doing because there is a lot of camaraderie, I think, once you kind of start searching for people who are also searching for that. So,
Yeah, I mean, even just in starting this podcast, something I've learned about the game dev community is just how accessible even some of the most successful people are. Like,
Yeah.
especially YouTube game dev. Like, the amount of people that have said yes to talking to me, like
Yeah.
especially when I was starting, like
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey, I have 7 subscribers. Would you like to have a conversation with me?
Yes.
And people said yes.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
it's kind of wild. There is the game dev community is not perfect, but that is a special part of it. There's an accessibility. If you just show, hey, I care about this thing too, people will jump on a call, and it's
Yep.
really cool.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite parts.
Same.
So yeah. Anyway, we got there from Just Keep Fishing, so we can
Yeah.
circle
Yeah.
back now.
Mm-hmm.
And also just working with Thornady and Aramis. What's something about Just Keep Fishing that you think is either unique or maybe just excites you about the game?
Ooh, I mentioned this in so people who aren't familiar, Just Keep Fishing is a top down kind of wholesome, cutesy, low poly fishing game where there's a lot of like ragdoll physics, and you just have this janky bobber on a line and you just throw it in the water and then you can pull up fish. And it's an incremental game, so you can buy a bunch of upgrades, increase your cast distance, increase the amount of fish that you can catch at once, and it's all very like fast paced, like throw it in, bloop, pull it in, throw the fish in a barrel, bloop, 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 and then a bunch of coins spit out, and then you can go buy upgrades. And so um, it's it's fun because I don't have to take it seriously, and there's a lot, and that was something that I wanted from the beginning. But it's interesting how the art style kind of communicates that automatically. Like you get in and like even the walk animation is so derpy. Like people know that this isn't a game that's going to be taken too seriously, and you can just have fun with it. Um, and that is the most fun place for me to sit as a developer and a designer, because it means that um, I can put things into the game that would be flagged as like a bug or broken in other projects, and I can just leave it because it's funny. Right now, there's a spoiler alert. There's a bug that when you enter the skill tree, you have all these nodes that are connected, and you can buy different upgrades, and you can use the mouse wheel to scroll out, and zoom out. There's no limit on that right now, and somebody figured that out and reported it, and you can just zoom out all the way. And so I'm like, oh, I got to fix that. And then I'm like, I was talking with Andy, and I think it was his idea. He's like, just throw some text on there, like make it a little Easter egg. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So if you zoom out, it's just like some text that says, please stop zooming out. But you still can. You can just there's no cap on it,
Right.
and I'm gonna leave it that way because it's hilarious. Um, or like I'm developing an ice level right now. So the first couple of islands are like kind of tropical islands where you're catching all these tropical fish, and then you get right now it's the third level. If you get to the third level, then it's and there's snow and ice and different types of fish that you can catch. And we wanted to put penguins in there that just kind of waddle around because that would be really cute. And that's the most fun part of game development for me, when I'm like, okay, we're putting penguins in. What does that mean? Well, they have to wobble, they have to be cute, but then I get to go in and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this penguin in a block of ice, and he's just going to be frozen, and he's just going to be part of the scene. And I love that kind of stuff. And then I was like, what would it mean to interact with penguins in this level? And I'm like, well, when they're waddling around and they get to like right on the edge and they're looking out over the water, I just want to like drop kick them. And so that's what I put in the game. You go up to them, you press the interact button, and they just boom, they just punt off into the distance, and it's so funny. And I got some feedback, and it was like, people are not going to be happy about this. Like we had you could catch turtles in the prototype of the early game, and people were very, very upset about that. And I'm like, yeah, if people were upset about catching turtles, kicking penguins is definitely going to be a. So anyway, I made it. You can still kick them, but they land in the water and then they swim back, and then you can kick them again. And that's the really fun part of game development for me.
Yeah, something that just little answer sparked for me is I've been obsessing over this idea lately of how the art has to kind of match sort of the not even just the vibe, but like the mechanics, and it's really sparked from this game, Horsey Game. Have you seen this game?
No, I'll look
Okay.
it up.
Well, Horsey Game, looks like it was, yeah, I'll just soliloquy while you look it up. It looks like
Yeah.
the art was drawn by like a third grader. Looks
Yes.
like when you see a screenshot, you're like, this looks so stupid. But the game is like going somewhat viral. Like a lot of the biggest
Mm.
streamers in the world have played it, and it's just really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But like the horses have this horrible running animation. Like they just like kind of like hobble around. And so I've just kind of been like, why is this game doing so well, even though it looks like
Yes.
such trash? And it's just
Yes.
like the mechanics, the gameplay, the bad art, like in quotes,
Yeah.
like it all matches. And
Yeah.
so like I just think for indie games especially, you can pull off something special where like the jank becomes almost beautiful
Yeah.
might be a little bit of a stretch, but like the jank becomes a feature almost. And yeah,
Totally.
I just think that's such a fun idea. And that's kind of what you're saying. Like you don't have
Yeah.
to make it perfect.
Yeah.
And yeah, that tangent kind of refreshed that for me.
Yeah. I love that.
I th-
Jankiness in a game is like you like I clicked on this game and I'm like, "Oh, I have no idea what to expect from this game." And that's kind of
Mhm.
refreshing. And it might hurt like marketing, and it might like because you're trying to convey like what you're promising to the player through like screenshots and stuff, but there's also something exciting where you're like, "Oh, this game is going to give me something, but I don't know what it is yet." And I think that that's really appealing.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so how do you balance with just keep fishing? Do you
Mhm.
try to showcase any of that quirkiness in some of the like just on the Steam page, or do you think just kind of the art style does it on its own?
Yeah, no, the Steam page is like it's like there's not a lot that went into the Steam page right now. Like you can like the
Sure.
short description is like one sentence. We had to put 5 screenshots in, so 2 are almost identical. But it was like let's get the Steam page out so that we can start talking about the game and making videos and talking publicly about it, and then collect some wish lists.
Yep.
When we release the demo, I think we're going to try and do a more intentional job of what screenshots are included and stuff. Because really, it's like there's really only 2 screenshots that you need for what the game represents right now. And it's like one, you're on a little island and you're just a little dude. And then the next one, it's like there's coins flying everywhere, a million fish in the ocean, and drones flying overhead. And you're like, what is going on? So basically, like those 2 are the only ones that are kind of conveying what the game's about right now, and like the skill tree. So yeah, but yeah, I think we could do better with before we release the demo.
Yeah, well, I'm sure some of that simplicity of not needing to communicate a lot will help you. Another thing I was just really interested in about this game is just sort of the whole ideation process. And then,
Yeah.
kind of combined with that, I think there's maybe this idea in the maybe indie dev community of like incrementals are pretty hot. Like Chris Lukowski would recommend that. So, just kind of, yeah, what was your ideation? Were you approaching kind of business minded? Was this just like you've always dreamed of making a fishing game? Yeah, just tell me a little about that.
Yeah. Basically, I spent a large portion of last year developing like a micro RTS game, like a game built upon my previous game Bridges and Docks, where you could command troops and send them to go capture bases and implement combat and all of these things. And you had like swordsmen and archers and all of this stuff. And I just realized that this game is cool and I think it has legs, but it is bigger than I want it to be. And I want to have a smaller scoped game that I can actually get to the finish line in a reasonable amount of time. So that was kind of my impetus for putting a pause on a bigger project. But I wanted to grab what I could out of that existing project, and feel like I could still make use of the time that I spent developing it, like the combat system specifically. So then I started prototyping this game that was it was like a Roman Colosseum where you have warriors fight each other, but the way that you spawn warriors is through a slot machine. And so you spin a slot machine and then you can see like what gear you get and what warriors you spawn. You can upgrade the slot machine and that's how you progress in the game and get more powerful. Also a good idea, not fun to play. So then I was like, okay, fun to design, fun to build, but not fun to play. And instead of trying to make it fun, I just pivoted to another idea, and it was this idea of automated fishing. And I don't know where I got the idea, but I just thought, hey, just have people fish for you, collect fish, and then collect more fish. Like really, really basic idea. And it was pretty fun, but it needed a lot of prototyping. And it's interesting because Andy and Corey were in from very early on in that process, and we went through a lot. And so it wasn't like I aspired to make a fishing game. It was just like trying to find a fun idea and then running with it and just adding, flares of personality as we go and trying to figure out what actually works for this mechanic. And I wanted it to be an incremental game. One, because I've been watching the success of other incremental games and how hungry the player base is for more of them. And two, because I wanted to work with Andy and Corey, and I know that they have special expertise in balancing incremental games and what makes them fun. So all of that kind of coalesced into developing this prototype. But one of the things that was really hard is, especially early on, the game could have been anything. And we were trying to figure out, okay, is this just going to be a simple incremental game, or is this going to be like a chill fishing adventure game? So a lot of trial and error during the early days.
Yeah, and then just going back to that kind of section where you had the RTS game and then you had the Coliseum game, it kind of ties in with this another question from the Discord. Patrick Pillmeyer was kind of asking about your process to decide when to pivot from a game and that an idea is not good enough. Do you have any words of like getting into your head in those spaces? I mean, the RTS one you just said was too big, but are there any other pieces of advice for how do you look at a game and decide when to pivot?
All I heard from that question was Patrick Pillmeyer process pivot.
That's awesome.
It is a really good it is a good question. The It's something that I am bad at, and I've talked about this before, but I'm bad at throwing out work. Like you can kind of tell from how I've explained my career trajectory is I'm always trying to be growing and learning, mitigate risk, where it's like, even if something doesn't work out, at least I've learned XYZ, or I can use that in the future. Which means I don't like to waste work. And that's why it's been really nice working with other developers on this game, because they are really good at just saying like, no, it's like, this isn't the right path. Like, we tried it. It's not as good as we thought. We're just going to not include it. And, the analogy that we've used is like the marble block, and you are making a statue by removal. And so you have to add, I guess you kind of start that way. So I guess a better analogy would be like pottery, but it's like if you're trying to make like a cup, and before you can make the handle, like you need like material. So you just kind of need to take a slab of clay and just go, and then you take away what's not good, and that's been very much the case with this project, which has been awesome. But more specifically, to answer when to pivot, I don't know. You shouldn't listen to me. I don't know. I'm not like tremendously successful. I'm making it work, but it's not like I don't feel like a pro by any means. But something that I've noticed is, especially following a lot of what Chris Sikowski has been espousing, is that developers are doing really well with their side project games. Like he's noticed a trend where people are pausing their long-term games, and then they are making games with very low commitment and releasing a game in 6 months, and it's doing super well. And so I think that's something to consider, and something that I've been thinking about a lot with this fishing game.
Yeah, and just two notes just from what you've already said that I think might help people is that, one, you identified the game was going to take longer than you wanted to spend on it. So just like taking a step back to just think like, what do I want to put in the game to make it what I want it to be, and how long will that take? And then just, is it fun to play yourself? Like if you're not having fun with your prototype, maybe don't spend all the time trying to make it fun. Like I think you had a really crucial line there of like, I wasn't going to keep trying to make it fun. Like if the fun's not there quickly, maybe that's a good thing to think about with pivoting. So just, that's something I heard from you there. So.
Yeah, totally. And to play devil's advocate though, I have heard Thornity recently talk about I think he captures the idea that the same thing that Jonas Tyrola talks about, which is like inhabiting a fantasy, and how strong is that fantasy, and is it compelling? And his sequence of designing a game is like find a good fantasy, um, and then I forgot what the middle step was, but then like the last step is make it fun. And so he's pretty confident that he could make any game fun. Um, Whereas I'm less confident in that, and so I'm trying to find something that is fun and then develop the fantasy as I go, I guess. So
Yeah, that whole conversation really just blows my mind. I got to ask Jonas about that when he came on the pod, and yeah,
yeah,
he similarly is like, I could make anything fun. Just
yeah,
pick a fantasy. So
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, maybe the key is like, do you have a fun fantasy before you move on? I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
It's a lot to think about. So yeah,
totally.
that's super fun.
Hmm.
Okay, my last question about Just Keep Fishing is, since you're working with Aramis and Thornity, and they're kind of coming off a game about feeding a black hole, which
Hmm.
has now, I think, surpassed $1 million, like really just was extremely successful. Do you feel like there's high expectations for the fishing game?
Um, I the way that we've been talking about it is, um, it'll be interesting because obviously both Aramis and Thornity have gained a lot of experience and clout from a game about feeding a black hole. And now it's kind of like, okay, how much of that was luck and how much of that was skill? And if you ask Andy or Corey, they will give you separate answers, which is really interesting. Um, my expectation is not to obviously match the sort of acclaim and sales figures that Black Hole has had. But what I've been mostly focusing on is how that game gives Just Keep Fishing a unique advantage to raise the floor for the launch. And so there's I don't know if I can I don't know if we've talked publicly about it, so I won't say specifics, but I think there's a benefit to having a back catalog of games that already has good exposure, and I think that there are smart ways that you can leverage that when you're launching new games. And so, um, so yeah, I my the way that I've just been thinking about it is that their previous success is just going to be like, I am kind of going to be able to stand on the shoulders of giants for the launch. So
Yeah, I think that's a super healthy way to think about it, of just like raising the floor. It
yep,
will be solid.
yep,
Maybe it'll do more and maybe it won't.
yep.
Yeah, I was just really curious to hear your thoughts on that. Coming off just an interesting season for them, as yeah, like
Hmm.
you said, there's just a lot of clout and excitement around them as developers, and that's super cool.
Yeah.
Um, I would also love to ask you about YouTube, as
Mm.
I'm obviously on YouTube now, and I'm always just really impressed by the developers that continue to make YouTube content because it's so much work.
Yeah.
So, just do you feel like YouTube as a game developer is worth it?
No. Nope. It's it. I mean it. So the way the games industry is hard because the way it feels a lot of the times is that it's a hit driven industry, right? And where like the top 1% gets all of the attention. YouTube feels similar to where when you're posting a video, you're kind of rolling the dice or spinning the slot machine and seeing if you're going to launch a winner out into the world. Um, my experience with YouTube is that it was not what I thought it would be. I thought it would be like a good way to market projects that I'm working on, a good way to bring in some side money through ads and sponsorships and stuff. And some of that has manifested, but it doesn't even equate to the amount of time and effort that I've put into YouTube, where it's like it's just not like somebody said recently, like, don't try and build your own audience to market to. Just let the content creators use their audiences. Just give them your game that you're building, and they are going to be way better at distributing it and getting eyeballs on it. You just need to make a game that they will want to play. And I think there's so much good wisdom in that. I was just having a conversation with somebody this week where They were asking me about YouTube too. And I told them, I feel like my YouTube is basically a glorified, I mean, this is oversimplifying. It's also a great creative outlet. And that's partially why I continue to do it, because I love being able to record in real time my small steps in my game development journey, and being able to share that with people and connect with people. But one of the main benefits has been networking. And so I basically, I call YouTube like a glorified LinkedIn now, because I get lots of freelance opportunities from YouTube, um, uh, prospects for jobs. People have offered me jobs and stuff, and it's like that's, and a lot of yeah, opportunities to meet with interesting and cool people. Like you've said, people are very willing to come onto a podcast. So now it's like, oh, I have a podcast. Do you want to come onto it? And people are much more likely to come and chat with me, and I can ask them questions. So there are a lot of benefits, but they're not. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you are like in the camp where I'm assuming most people who would ask this question are in, where it's like, okay, I want to make my own games. Should I make a YouTube channel too? I would be like, no, that's a distraction. I don't think you should do it.
Yeah, if you ever released a wildly successful game, would you continue to do YouTube then, just for the sort of social and networking piece, or is a part of it still, do you feel like propping up your business as well right now?
Um, just this year, I've started to be able to put, like, I have started treating my YouTube channel like a business. For context, I have like 17,000 subscribers, so not a ton, but not negligible. But where I can charge some money for sponsors, and like I started paying an editor to edit my videos, and so that I could free up some time to seek out sponsorships. And it's still like YouTube is still getting the raw end of the deal. I'm like spending all of my time elsewhere. I'm not even like spending a lot of time on YouTube, which is like, but I do want to keep doing it. If I didn't have to worry about money or anything, I would still keep making YouTube videos, because I think it's a really, one of the biggest but underlooked benefits of having a YouTube channel is I feel myself becoming more articulate, and I can develop ideas out loud better because I'm naturally such an internal processor. And I've found that having podcast conversations and even just talking to a camera, I am able to formulate my thoughts better. But whereas before I could only put a lot of my thoughts together silently, and then I would have to speak. So
Yeah, there's so many like side tangential things you do get from a YouTube channel. It's cool. Now, considering all of those things in mind, networking and uh better ideation and speaking, or what you were just describing, do you think you would still be in the games industry if you hadn't done YouTube?
um it's a good question. The the interesting thing about what I'm doing is it's kind of like an experiment. Like my approach to YouTube was never like, oh, I am going to teach people because I know what I'm talking about, because I don't. My whole approach to YouTube has been like, hey, I am going to try and do the best that I can and make videos about it, and you can watch hopefully like an authentic window into what it looks like for somebody who's trying to figure out how to make a living making games. Um, yeah, I was gonna say more, but that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, thanks for sharing that.
yeah,
Um, One other topic that I wanted to ask you about, kind of shifting gears once again, is that you're also a parent. I have learned that I have a lot of parents that are making games on the
yeah.
side in my community. Also, congratulations on baby number two, which you announced in the
Thank you.
Scope Creepers podcast.
Yeah.
Excited for you. That's awesome. So yeah, maybe this is a little bit different since you're full time making your games. But
Hmm.
one thing I've also heard other full-time developers say is it's like hard not to just like always be thinking about your game or separating family and dev time.
Yeah.
So just, yeah, how do you balance your game dev and being a dad?
It is a wonderful cluster. It is a there. one of the primary reasons why I wanted to leave my 9 to 5 job was because I thought that I could do a better job of managing my time. I thought I don't want to have this monolithic block where I'm tied to my desk. I want to be able to work in smaller pockets of time, and I felt like I could do that more efficiently. And part of that is taking time for family. And so saying like, hey, it doesn't have to be a Saturday. It can be a random Tuesday at 2 p.m. and I can, go hang out with my family at the park, or we can drive, to the coast out of town or something for the weekend. Like all of these things that open up opportunities where I get to be present with my family is one of the biggest uh, one of the biggest benefits of being self-employed.
Yeah,
And
that
yeah,
part.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna, kind of transition to a follow-up question.
Hmm.
And yeah, that just sounds like a lovely life. And I think
Yep.
there's a core part for a lot of developers of feeling that monolith in their life. But maybe
Hmm.
it's not even for family, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, so I think a lot of people will resonate with that. Would you say that any of your perspectives, either on game dev or maybe even just life, have changed since becoming a dad?
Oh yeah, everything. Man, so much. I cry a lot more. There are like even things like commercials or like Pixar movies where now as a dad who has been through the experience of bringing a life into this world and like trying to nurture it and seeing who she's becoming and then bringing another baby into this world. It's like I don't know. I connect on an emotional level to mostly like tragedies more. Like I'm like,
Mm.
oh, like I used to hear of hard things and I'm like, oh yeah, that's really sad. And I could acknowledge that like a catastrophe is sad. And now like I hear of like, I'm not going to list anything, but use your imagination of some
Mm-hmm.
catastrophe and it just like hits me so much harder
Hmm.
now. Yeah. So it's yeah. I hold the life of my children and my wife in uh as very valuable. It more so than I would consider, fearing for my own life or things like that. Um that's like a very like existential side of it. But also I find myself having more fun too. Because every night before bedtime. It's like I'm just playing and finding like ways to find fun as a parent while your toddler is also having fun is a really enjoyable experience. Like we build with blocks and just have imaginative play and we run around and chase each other, and that's great. Like I laugh a lot more now and I cry a lot more now. So I guess that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a very cool and sweet thing. Another just kind of thing as a dad and a game developer, I just kind of thought of this question as thing and just kind of thought it was interesting. But what are your thoughts with your kids and video games
Yeah.
as a game developer? I think there's a lot of skepticism and probably some correctly so around video games and kids
Mhm.
and obviously healthy screen time. So yeah, just I was just curious what you thought about that. If you have any thoughts you'd be willing to share, and if this
Totally.
is too personal, too much in your family life,
No.
just let me know.
It's
Yeah.
it's so interesting because one thing that I've learned becoming a parent is that uh, parents have a lot of opinions and they have a lot of opinions about how other people parent. And one of the things that my wife and I have tried to do is reduce screen time for our daughter. She's 2, so she's not really at the stage where she can pick up a controller and play a video game. But we have thought about screen time and what that looks like for her, and how it can be used in a way to um, benefit her, but not feel like a crutch. And what I've realized is she's just at the developmental capacity to where she can start playing some really simple touchscreen games, like on my phone. Like she can see like a hole in the shape of a star and she can drag a star to it, and then it gives it like confetti and then and she loves that. Um, and I've realized that if I were to pick between her watching a cartoon versus her playing a video game, I would much rather her be playing a game because I can see the gears turning in her head. Whereas when she's just taking in a story from a cartoon, then she's just a zombie. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm really excited. I mean, she also plays. She doesn't play, but she watches me develop games, and she's very invested in the games that I'm developing. And so she likes to. Sometimes she'll be like, "Dad, go work on your fishing game," and so I'm like, "Okay." Uh, yeah. So I don't have any final big thoughts about that, but ongoing
Sure.
conversation.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that little insight into your personal life. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Let me wrap up with just two kind of more game dev centric questions, and then we'll call it a day. Is there any common game dev advice that you disagree with?
Um, Common game dev advice that I disagree with. I I mean, one of the biggest ones that people talk about is like building your dream game and how you shouldn't. And I mostly agree with that, but I also think you just have to know yourself. Um, like for me, what I tried to do is finish projects and treat finishing like a skill and figuring out how you actually go through the steps to polish a game enough to where people can play it without bugs and go through what it means to, go through all the marketing beats and get things online and everything. So like finishing. And that's really hard to do if you start off early making this huge ambitious project. On the other hand, I have seen like people developing their dream games as the only, they're so excited about it that it's the only thing that carries them to continue working on it. And so I think it is good advice to hold off on making your dream game, but I also think like what do you want out of it, and do you know yourself well enough to how you're going to respond to different types of ideas and projects? Because like I was commiserating recently with Andy because we were talking about um, DevDuck and his game Dolphin, and how he does not have a Steam page for his game. He might have put one up now, I don't know, but like for the longest time he didn't have a Steam page, and he's got like hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube and tons of views for his devlogs. Um, and he just seems so unbothered about collecting wish lists or even releasing his game. And because his ambition is not to try and leave the rat race of his day job, right? He's very content, and he's using it as a creative outlet, and he just loves the process, and he is content with the rhythm of his life. And I think that's beautiful, and I think a lot of people could adopt that. And I think it's easier to adopt like a dream game type of project if you have that sort of stability in your life. Um, yeah, I guess that's one.
Yeah, that's a good thought to think about. And there's something, yeah, so admirable about that of just creating for the love of the game.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then yeah, so that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last question. I'll let you get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that you yourself have learned about game dev, or even life, if you want, over the last year that you've maybe changed
Ooh.
your mind on, or something you've learned?
Yeah. For game dev specifically, I have learned the importance of playtesting. That has been something that has revolutionized how I make games. Like I kind of walked you through how I see like the broadening exposure to games that I am currently developing and then will in the future. But it's like, how did you respond to player feedback? And I talked about this with Andy, where it's like, is the game confusing, and also is it fun? And you can't really get try and intuit those by yourself, but getting somebody who is fresh to the game will give you so much more insight. And again, it's like this idea of like gathering many people into a room and just seeing what's obvious to them. And so once you take what's obvious to a lot of people, then you're gonna have a pretty decent game, I think. So that's something that I've been thinking a lot about.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Thomas, thanks for joining me today on the Dev Dream Pod. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
I
the best.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Hope that we can follow up and have you on my podcast soon.